It is my pleasure to call the February 2024 meeting of your Hanover Borough Council to order. I request that we do two things. First and foremost, that we stand and recite our wonderful Pledge of Allegiance together. And we follow that with a brief moment of silence.
They said with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and please be seated.
You say so.
Secretary Felix, let's call the roll.
Mr. Fuentes, Mrs. Funk,
Here.
Mrs. Greenholt,
Here.
Mr. Bob,
Yep.
Mr. Hagberg,
Here.
Mr. Kress,
Here.
Mr. Lookenbill,
Here.
Mr. Ricart,
Here.
Mr. Rowland,
Here.
Dr. Rupp,
Here.
Solicitor Schultes,
Here.
Manager Lewis,
Here.
Mayor Whitman,
Here.
Secretary Felix, Junior Counsel Libby Houston, Taya Prasad. We have a quorum.
Solicitor Schultes, will you tell the folks here in attendance about our executive session this evening?
Thank you. The executive session was held tonight prior to this meeting from 6:30 p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. involving the following items under Section 708A3 and 5 of the Sunshine Act. To meet with the solicitor to discuss attorney-client matters regarding the proposed alley vacation, and to discuss with the solicitor a potential conflict of interest with the HEDC regarding the potential land lease, since the solicitor represents both the borough and the HEDC.
Thank you. At this time, we have a presentation, the Police Department accreditation.
Thank you. I'm Jim Adams from the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association and the Accreditation Program Coordinator. And first, I'd like to thank Borough Council for putting me on the agenda and giving me an opportunity to make this presentation in public. And also, too, if I may just briefly talk a little bit about what accreditation is. I occasionally do these presentations across the state, and I usually remind everyone that there's a 5-minute limit for any public speakers, and I don't see any limit, so I guess I can talk all night about accreditation, because really there is
5 minutes and 5 seconds.
But I promise I won't do that, okay? But seriously, I want to just briefly talk about what this represents, because this is more than just a certificate. This is not a certificate for life, and I'll talk a little bit about that just real briefly. But there's a process that happens long before there's even any consideration of granting accreditation to the police department in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Back in the 90s, the Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association saw a need to promote best practices in professional policing in Pennsylvania. And they got a grant and put together an accreditation program that rolled out in 2001. What the process is now when a police department decides they want to pursue accreditation is they do a self-assessment. They take a look at the standards in our accreditation program. Right now we have 125 standards or 125 best practices that an accredited police department meets. But that's a little bit of a misnomer, because within those 125 best practices or those standards, there are what we call bullets or substandards. There's actually 245 of them. So when you add it up, this certificate represents that your police department complies with 370 best practices in law enforcement and providing professional police services. How did they get to this certificate? They first take a look at their existing policy. They take a look at all of those standards, all those best practices, and make sure they have policies, procedures, special orders in place addressing all of those. And then when they feel that they're ready for it, they contact my office. We send out 3 assessors. They can come from anywhere in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and they literally go through the entire policy manual, making sure that all of those 370 best practices are complied with in policy. But as we all know, the best policy manual doesn't do you any good if it's sitting on the shelf and not being complied with, if officers and staff aren't following it. So part of our program is for every one of those 370 best practices The first time they go through this, they have to have a minimum of 2 what we call proofs of compliance. They have to prove to those assessors, whether it's by actual incidents or by observable situations, that the staff are actually following all of those policies and procedures that represent those 370 best practices. They spent 2 days here with your police department going through policies, looking at the facilities, doing ride-alongs with officers, and making sure that all of the standards are complied with. Very comprehensive report was developed. It was then reviewed by the entire Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission at our last quarterly meeting. And your police department was represented there along with the assessment team. Questions were asked, and ultimately, your police department was granted accredited status. I mentioned this is not a certificate for life. Every year on their anniversary date, they have to do a self-assessment. It's quite a lengthy questionnaire that they complete, and they attest that they are in full compliance with all the standards. They do that on the first anniversary date, the second anniversary date, then on the third anniversary date, we put them through the entire drill again. We will send 3 new assessors in and go through the entire policy manual, making sure they completely comply. Sometimes I get asked, well, what's the benefit of being an accredited police department? Well, the insurance industry recognizes the benefits because what the statistics show, when you compare like-sized police departments, accredited police departments statistically get sued less often than non-accredited police departments. And when you compare those police departments that do get sued, accredited police departments, the payouts are significantly less. Why is that? Because an independent body came in and reviewed the policies and showed that they have best practices. The other thing that I'll mention too real briefly as far as what's the benefit, there are 3 situations that happen. One, unfortunately, after George Floyd, a lot of initiatives were put out there. In Pennsylvania, some of our state legislators put together the 8 Can't Wait initiatives. 8 Can't Wait initiatives, these were policies, these were initiatives that they felt all police departments need to adhere to immediately. Well, guess what? All the accredited police departments in Pennsylvania had already been following those initiatives for a long time. Under President Trump, an executive order came out that said all police departments, if you want to get federal grant monies, you have to comply with these 2 credentialing, it's just a different word for standards, to get DOJ money. Police departments in Pennsylvania were already accredited. They already had those 2 executive order credentialing standards in place. President Biden came in and, of course, abolished Trump's executive order, came out with his new one that has 20 credentialing standards in it, that if you want Department of Justice money, if you want federal money, you have to comply with these 20 standards. Guess what? Accredited departments already are complying with those. So I could go on and on. I would love to. I know you don't have the 5-minute limit, but I'm trying to adhere to it. But seriously, if you want to learn more about accreditation, go to Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police public-facing webpage, pachiefs.org, and that's the same for anybody in the audience or
Say again, what
anybody.
was that?
pachiefs.org.
Thank you.
It's a public-facing webpage. You don't need any credentials to get into it. There you'll see an accreditation tab. Click on that. There's a lot of information, and those 125 standards, those 370 best practices, they're all listed on the webpage. And when you look at the webpage, if you have any questions, you have some resident experts in-house that you've talked to about accreditation. But also my contact information is there. So without any further ado, I would like to publicly present this certificate recognizing that the Hanover Borough Police Department is an accredited police department. I also might add, in Pennsylvania, we have about 1,100 municipal police departments. We have 170 accredited, Hanover being one of them. We have, in
Say
fact...
that again, we have 1,100, that was the question.
Yes,
1,100.
approximately 1,100. Depends what day you count them as to how many police departments we have.
And how many are accredited?
170.
170, thank you.
We've actually, in the life of the program, accredited 191 police departments. But as I said, this is not a certificate for life. We go through the process.
You have to requalify every year or
Yes, and some
whatever.
police departments don't maintain it for a multitude of reasons.
Okay.
Okay? So, hopefully your insurance carrier recognizes, make sure you tell them that you now have an accredited police department, because some insurance companies actually are reducing the cost of your liability insurance because you're saving them money.
We have that with our fire department.
Good.
We're rated among one of the best,
Good, good. That's
which
why-
results in the homeowners having reduced fire insurance costs.
Good. That's great. So, as I said, certainly, reach out or go to that webpage or talk to your in-house experts. But I'd like to now present this certificate publicly to the representatives of Hanover Borough Police Department. Get a photo op.
There we go.
That's gonna be a good picture.
One more, here we go. Okay. I want to go from this one too, it's really good. Sorry.
How about a standing round of applause for the police department and their hard work?
Thank you for coming.
Real quick on behalf of the police department, I'd like to thank council for your support. That's been a great deal and kept us moving and making this achievement possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Chief.
Good job.
All righty, we will move into our public public comment portion of the meeting. I have one in-room request to speak. That is Robert Holt. Robert, I didn't see you. You were hidden back there.
Yeah, sorry.
So the floor is yours. You know the drill.
A little tired than usual.
Yep.
Robert Holt, P.O. Box 1131, Hanover. I guess everyone's breathing a little sigh of relief about the state grant that came through for the library building. I take it, reading between the lines of the press release, that it's going to go for the HVAC repairs that are estimated up to $500,000 and will not be used for other purposes other than the building. But it just still underscores the fact that the problem is not solved, and we can't afford to continue the financial arrangements that we currently have. And a promise was made last year that we were getting out of the library business, and I'm going to ask you to keep that promise. Changing gears a little bit, in the past couple of governance committee meetings, there's been a discussion about an employee weapons policy, but it has not appeared on the agenda for the council. And at some point, I would hope that there's going to be a discussion about that. I have my personal feelings, but, but the public has a right to know that when they come in this building, which employees may or may not be carrying a weapon, including employees who may not be involved in law enforcement. And that's all. That I just wish that that policy be made available for the public when it's finalized, so that when we come into this building, we know the situation and we can be aware, equally as everybody else is aware of what's the situation and what are the risks. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. I guess I'll ask for community media's assistance.
If you're joining us via Zoom, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to address council.
No takers? Okay, we will close the first public comment portion of the meeting and move into the consent agenda consideration. Is there a motion to approve? Consent agenda?
So motion.
Moved. Second? Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The motion carries. Turning to page 2, reports of standing committees. We have public safety. Without Councilor Fuentes to make the formal request, it is now Councilor Greenhold who will be making the Public Safety Committee request.
Okay.
Mrs. Greenwald, floor is yours.
Consideration of a motion to approve ordinance number 2361 to enact the fire insurance escrow law in the Borough of Hanover.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we will be doing a roll call, so Secretary Felix will be calling the vote. I'll tell you the result.
Dr. Rupp,
For.
Mr. Ricart,
Four.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
Mr. Kress,
Yes.
Mr. Lookenbill,
Four.
Mrs. Greenholt,
Yes.
Mrs. Funk,
Yes.
Mr. Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. Hegberg.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you. Counselor Greenholt, back to you.
Consideration of a motion to approve ordinance number 2362 to enact a parking restriction in the alley adjacent 309 West Hanover Street from West Hanover Street to the first alley north of and parallel to West Hanover Street.
So motion.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion required? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Oh, excuse me.
Is it ordinance?
My capable assistant, Secretary Felix, had that all written down for me, and I still screwed it up, so I'm owning that one. Roll call, Secretary Felix.
Dr. Rupp,
For.
Mr. Ricart,
Four.
Mr. Bub,
Yep.
Mr. Kress,
Yes.
Mr. Lookenbill,
Four.
Mrs. Greenholt,
For.
Mrs. Funk,
Yes.
Mr. Rowland,
Four.
Mr. Hegberg.
Four.
Motion passes 9 in favor of, 0 against.
Counselor Greenholt, still with you.
Okay. Consideration of a motion to advertise an ordinance for the following changes along East Chestnut Street. A, prohibit parking from 109 to 113 East Chestnut Street, south side. B, removal of yield signs on Alouette Alley when entering east side of Chestnut Street, on East Walnut Street when entering Grant Drive. And C, installation of a stop sign on Alouette Alley at east side of East Chestnut Street.
So motion.
Is there discussion required? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Please.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. That will take us to the mayor's report. Mayor Whitman.
All right, good evening. My report for January 2024, my mayor highlights. January 2nd, I was honored to be invited to the swearing-in of our county commissioners, President Commissioner Julie Wheeler, Commissioner Doug Hoke, and new Commissioner Scott Burford. Our new magisterial district judge, Michael Gessner, was also sworn in. January 4th, the Homelessness Coalition met in Hanover. The meeting was led by Dr. Susan Peck. Local organizations in attendance were Hanover Area Council of Churches, New Hope, Life Path Ministries, Guthrie Memorial Library, Jeff Waltman, our Emergency Management Coordinator, Valley Forge Restoration Center, and several other agencies. The main topics were Code Blue facilities and other available resources for homeless people in the Hanover area, with the goal of these agencies communicating and working together to make the most of the limited resources available. January 13th, Main Street Hanover, Hanover Area Chambers, State Rep. Kate Klunk, Councilwoman Carol Greenholt, Borough Manager Lewis, and I welcomed Doggone Bees Apiary and Meadery to the square downtown. They have quality homemade products including beeswax candles, moisturizers, honey butters and spreads, and of course pure raw honey and meats and so much more. They also carry beekeeping supplies and offer beekeeping classes. Make sure to visit this lovely, friendly store and their knowledgeable staff on all things bees. January 26th, the 250th Anniversary Committee reconvened for the 2024 and got reacquainted and organized. We welcomed some new and interesting members as well, and we are looking forward to their valuable contributions. During the month, I continued working on the Blue Zones project that the steering committee has been working diligently on bringing to Hanover and York County with our big event planned for March. I would like to extend our, and then, as we just did with the police, I would like to extend our congratulations to the Hanover Borough Police Department for achieving their certificate of law enforcement from the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. Becoming an accredited agency is a testament to the dedication and professionalism of all the employees of the Hanover Borough Police Department. And this process of independent review demonstrates that the police department is operating and continues to operate within the best practices of the professions. Congratulations. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor Whitman. At this time, I'll make the announcement, pleasantly so, that our Borough Manager, Lewis, was recently appointed by the York County Commissioners to the York County Housing and Development Loan Committee for a 3-year term from March 1st, 2024 to March 1st, 2027. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Does that come with a
There you
big
go,
pay
Margie.
increase?
I don't think so. Much like you folks, I don't believe there's a pay involved.
A lot of these things don't, so, okay, again, congratulations. We'll open it up in room for any final thoughts on public comment. Seeing none, community media, anyone online wishing to have a parting shot?
Second chance for those joining us online. If you'd like to address council, you can unmute yourself.
Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion and ask Councilor Vice President Kress for a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Good job, Tim.
Favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Rick and Tim.